The way the first question is stated is not really a question, it's just a statement. And it says this: please help us better understand Matthew 24. And boy, do we need a better understanding of Matthew 24 in our world today. Most individuals who read Matthew 24 believe that everything in that chapter is referring to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And they believe that within that chapter, the Lord gives us signs that we can look to, and as we see these signs happening in the world, then we know that Jesus is going to be coming very, very soon. And my friends, they are badly mistaken. So let's look at some things that might help us to better understand Matthew 24. Now, to go into it in great detail would take us a couple of lessons. So we're going to have to really point out a few things to get through this. Let's look at the initial conversation that transpires. There's three things that happen in those first verses of Matthew 24. In verse 1, there is the fascination with the temple. The Bible says, and when Jesus departed, He departed from the temple, and His disciples came unto Him, and showeth Him all the buildings of the temple. You see, there was a fascination that His disciples had with the temple. There was a fascination that all Jews had with the temple. The temple was the dwelling place of God. It contained the holy place and the most holy place. Inside the temple, the most holy place was the Ark of the Covenant. This particular temple was a majestic structure. 46 years it had been building at the hands of Herod, and the Jews were proud of this wonderful structure, and you can almost see the disciples eagerly around Jesus, showing Him this building and this part of the temple and that part of the temple. And then there's this, Jesus' words about the future of the temple. Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left one stone upon another, which shall not be cast down. Wow. Now I want you to really put yourself in the position of those apostles. They loved the temple. They honored the temple. They respected the temple. They held that temple in the most high esteem. And here they are trying to show it off to Jesus, and Jesus' response to them involving the future of the temple is that, you see all these things you're pointing out to me? Every one of them are going to be torn down. It's all going to come to an end. It's all going to be destroyed. Not one stone left upon another. You can't hardly believe it, can you? I couldn't. Jesus and His disciples exit the city of Jerusalem, and they go out to a mountain not very far from the city of Jerusalem known as the Mount of Olives. A place where Jesus and His disciples oftentimes went to relax in order to have some private times for themselves, to be involved in prayer. And on this occasion, the Bible says that the disciples came to Jesus privately. They got some questions. And they asked Him three questions. Number one, when shall these things be? You see, what He had told them is still on their mind, isn't it? The temple is going to be destroyed. The temple is going to be cast down. One stone not on top of another. When shall these things be? The second question. And what shall be the sign of Thy coming? And the third question. And of the end of the world. What shall be the sign of the end of the world? It appears as though the apostles had connected the destruction of the temple to the end of the world, doesn't it? When shall these things be? When's the temple going to be destroyed? What are going to be the signs of your coming? And of the end of the world. So three questions are asked by the disciples. Now that ends the initial discussion. Now what's interesting is, verses 4 through 51, that's the end of the chapter, involves Jesus' answer to those questions. How many questions were asked? 3. But Jesus is only going to answer 2. Now here's what He's going to do. He's going to take that middle question, what are the signs of thy coming? And He's going to apply it to question number 1. When shall these things be? And what are going to be the signs of these things? He's then going to apply the question to the third question. What are going to be the signs of the end of the world? I hope I made sense in what I just said. 3 questions asked, but Jesus is only going to answer 2. And He's going to tell them, these are the signs of the fall of Jerusalem, and these are the signs of the end of the world. Now keep that in mind, and now notice this. We jump all the way down to verse 34, and there is a stark contrast that Jesus presents to His disciples. Folks, the point that we're making is this. Right here at verse 34, Jesus is ending His discussion of the first question. Okay? But I want you to listen to what He says to these disciples. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass. Got that? Underline the words, this generation. What generation? The one to which He is speaking. The one among whom Jesus is living at this present time. The first century. This generation, the people who are living right now, notice what He says, everybody who is living right now will not pass till. That little word till is an adverb of time. Till what? Till all these things be fulfilled. Verses 4 through 33, Jesus gives them the signs of the fall of Jerusalem. And what does He tell them? He tells them that this generation is not going to pass until all those things transpire. So He gave them signs. Now jump to verse 36. But, hear that little word? But. That's an adverb, or that is a conjunction of contrast. But of that day and hour, what day is that? It's not the fall of Jerusalem. But of that day and hour, that's the second coming of Jesus. That's the end of the world. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. He affirms that again in 2 other verses, verse 42 and verse 44. He tells them to watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. He tells them in verse 44 that they need to prepare themselves. Be ye also ready. For in such an hour that ye think not the Son of Man cometh. Folks, listen to me. There are no signs. There are no signs for the second coming of Jesus Christ. There is nothing to which we can look. There are no wars and rumors of wars. There are no Christ and Antichrist that are going to rise up. There is no great tribulation. There are none of those things. Nobody knows. Not even the angels in heaven know when the Lord is coming again. Now, as far as the fall of the city of Jerusalem, oh yes. He gave them a host of signs that would transpire. And guess what? Josephus tells us that not one Christian perished in the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. Isn't that amazing? You want to know why? Because Jesus had warned them. When you see these signs happening, when you see these signs coming to pass, guess what? You know that the fall of Jerusalem is coming and you better get out of the city. And they did. And not one Christian died in the fall of Jerusalem. Now we could talk about a lot of the terminology in those opening verses of Matthew 24. And we could be here, like I said, the rest of the afternoon because there's some interesting statements that are made like this. The abomination of desolation. How about this next one? The great tribulation. Here's another one. Lightning cometh from the east. Look at this one. The coming of the Son of Man. What does that mean? And also this one. Wheresoever the carcass is, notice what he says, there will the eagle be gathered together. See, I could spend another hour, couldn't I? Now all of you are going to put questions in the box. What's the great tribulation? What's the eagle being gathered? What's all that mean? Well, just put your questions in there because I'm not going to talk about it today. But when you understand that those verse 40, verse 4, all the way through 33 refer to the destruction of the city of Jerusalem, folks, those statements, once they are properly understood, are easy to comprehend. And they make sense. So maybe one of these days we'll come back and we'll really study those first verses in great detail. So there's question number 1.